And we're back. For those of you just joining us, welcome to The Power Is Now. My name is Eric Frazier, and folks, I've been having a wonderful time talking to Jenny Gonzalez, real estate agent extraordinaire out of Corona, California. She works for Keller Williams. Have you heard of Keller Williams? It's probably one of the strongest, most known franchises in the country, folks. They do a great job, and she's with an awesome team of agents in her office there in Corona, and they work together to help each other build their respective businesses and to support their respective clients, whether they are buyers or sellers. Jenny just finished telling us about her social media expertise. Folks, she's all over the internet, and every day, every week, she's doing something right here on The Power Is Now. Jenny, again, thank you really for your time today. I am enjoying this conversation with you, and I certainly hope those who are listening on Blog Talk Radio are watching on Facebook or enjoying it as well, and we'll share this video.
Thank you, Eric, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, the pleasure again is all mine. Jenny, what makes you so passionate about real estate, or selling real estate, or just being in the real estate business?
Actually, what makes me passionate about the real estate business is what happens at the close of escrow. Whether it be sellers or buyers, when they are satisfied and they tell you how much they appreciate you and how much you've made a difference in their lives, that is what makes me passionate. It's not the bottom line number at the end of the day. It's the actual relationship and what I get back in return here in my heart.
Wow, Jenny, that really speaks to, your personality, because you're all about relationships, right? And you want them to be happy, and you want them to fulfill their dreams. In fact, for many people, it's their first home, right?
Yes, I've been dealing with a lot of first-time home buyers over the last couple of years. And I used to deal with people that, I put them in their homes, their first homes, and then they were getting their second homes. And now those people their children are now buying through me, which is absolutely fantastic.
Wow, that is the reward, isn't it, of just providing great customer service and building relationship and becoming part of the family. Jenny, can you share with us just a quick story, say of a transaction that kind of really touched you the most, that you'll never forget, as either as a listing agent or as a buyer's agent?
I can tell the one story that is my favorite. I told once before, and it's both as a listing agent and as a buyer's agent. I had a property that my friend had given me the actual contact information because they could not refinance. The mother was in a wheelchair. She was diagnosed with MS 16 years ago, and her husband had died 2 years before. And they found out that there was over $60,000 worth of tax debt that he had accumulated, and they had attached it to the house, so she could not refinance. So what happened is we ended up listing the home. And then this daughter, the husband, and the 2 kids that were living in this tiny little house needed to go find another home. And it needed to be perfect for the mother in the wheelchair as well. So what I did is I listed their home. It sold very quickly, and we found another home. But in turn, as I don't know if you remember, it was contingent on the buyer on our side selling their home that they were in escrow in, and that fell out. So then in turn, we had to put a stop on everything and wait to see if that other buyer would come through, which they didn't, and we lost that other house. My buyer was kind of devastated. But the seller was very adamant. She says, I know this is going to take time, Jenny, and I trust you. She was a spark plug, and I just loved her. I would go over and just stop and by and say hi to her because she made such a difference in my life. Someone who's 56 years old, in a wheelchair for 16 years, and still has that personality. I smile just thinking about it. And then this family has 2 great children. They're absolutely beautiful. And I knew I needed to find them another home and get another buyer. So we did get another buyer, and we found another home that was even better. It was clear throughout the whole house, from driveway through all the rooms. The wheelchair access was perfect. The seller had actually a brother that had been in a wheelchair, and he had made the house wheelchair accessible for him. So it was the perfect house for my buyers. And as we say, everything happens for a reason. And I went by, and after a year, I went by there recently for their 1-year anniversary. They even had taken a zip line for their son, and they set up a zip line in the backyard, and I got to videotape him going zip lining in the backyard. It was absolutely wonderful. They're my favorite family right now.
That's a great story, Jenny. And you know, it speaks volumes about you and them giving you more time to work through it and to find another buyer and get the job done. And it really isn't real estate all about trust anyway, right? Trusting the agent you're working with, having confidence in them to get the job done.
Yes, exactly. I had one the one that just closed on Friday. I had great feedback from the seller. Her daughter is a listing agent out of LA, and she was having the hardest time getting things done. And I'm like, just send it to me, just send it to me. I'll get it done. And she said, my daughter, she says, I feel the same way. She says, you are the best agent I've ever dealt with. And she asked me for some cards because she says, since I'm leaving I'm leaving to Texas, and my neighbors are really sad. They said that they're going to want to sell their houses too. Can I have some cards? I said, sure. Had my gloves on, and I'm handing cards out.
That's great. Jenny, you are just, man, you're fabulous. And I can see why your clients love you. Why don't you share with our audience, what is it that you do to help? Let's start with sellers. What are some of the strategies you employ to help sellers sell outside of your great personality and relationship building skills?
Actually, when I go into a property, I like to not necessarily just sit down and talk automatically. I like to let them show me their house. And I will actually take down my notes at that point in time. And I will go over the house with them and tell them certain things that I see. Since I'm a seasoned real estate agent, I kind of know the things that need to be done through home inspections and so forth. So I actually will go through the house with them and tell them the things I think they need to do prior to it going on the market. And I will also suggest that they get a termite inspection done, because that's very important, because that's a lot of times a lot of problems come when people order the termite inspections late and they really don't know what's going on with their property. A lot of times there's nothing on the report, so you're fine and you look wonderful. And there's some other things that you can do as well. You can get your house appraised in advance and know what your actual value is. So there's a lot of things that you can do before listing a property. And so then we can go ahead, and once the property is set, we can have a professional photographer with drone if necessary. Professional photos are absolutely a necessity. The only reason why my 2 that I have right now aren't on professional photographers because they're tenant occupied and we can't not go in there. So we have to use other photos. But with all other listings, we use professional photography, and the pictures turn out beautiful, and then we can do virtual open houses regarding that until we're actually able to do open houses.
Now, if the seller isn't willing to appraise the property or, you know, pay for an appraisal of the property, how do you come to terms on value or list price?
I just use comparable sales, and I try and show them what other houses look like that are like theirs and what their price ranges are that. And I say, okay, well, if that house has a pool and that your house does not, and your house is exactly the same, it looks exactly the same, a pool is generally about $10,000 on an appraisal. So let's take $10,000 off that. Sometimes I get a little bit of pushback on that, but mostly I don't. So I usually will sell a home for list price, if not above list price.
And so in the last, say, few transactions, has that been the actual case that you've sold the homes either at or above list price?
Yes, they've been around list price, and the appraisals actually come in. I have not had an appraisal come in under list price. I have not. It's been several years since I've had that happen.
Now, with the COVID-19 virus, the pandemic, we're going to see some disruption in the market with home prices. And so it could be a challenge moving forward in sellers getting what they want. But that is really kind of market driven, right? Real estate is a very local phenomenon, right? And so what's happening in Corona necessarily may not necessarily happen in, say, Rancho Cucamonga or Los Angeles or any of the other surrounding areas. I would like for you to talk about actually what's happening in the Corona market in more detail. But before we do, let's transition to buyers. How do you help buyers? What are some of the strategies you do to help buyers find a home?
First of all, when a buyer contacts me, I try and interview them over the phone, ask them what they do, how long they've been doing it, because I know they need to have a job for at least 2 years in the same field. And then at that point, I hand them off to my lender because I will not deal with the buyer until they are actually pre-approved. If they're pre-approved that day or a couple days later, then we're ready to go. But a lot of times they have some things to work on and the lender is in charge of doing that. So like Eric, I send them over to you and you will tell me their credit's not quite there, they need to work on it a little bit, or they need to provide some more documentation. And once that documentation is in and I have that letter in hand and I have proof of funds in hand, then we're ready to go. I have them put in writing what it is they're looking for and their price range. And then we kind of look out. A lot of times what ends up happening, sometimes they find a house right away. But if they don't, and they're not able to find something in their direct area, then I tell them to think outside the box a little bit. But sometimes we need to think outside the box and go to the next city. You never know what's going on in the next city. Your perfect house may not be in Corona, it may be in Riverside. It's that house you've been looking for and it's only 10 minutes away. And that's what I found with that story with the mother and the daughter. They thought they were going to move to Riverside from Riverside, and they ended up going out to Beaumont. She said it's the best decision she's ever made.
Jenny, I appreciate your diligence in making sure the buyer, number one, is prepared to buy. And going through the pre-approval process is so important so that the buyer has the right expectations, yes, right, the right understanding about their ability. Because sometimes buyers think they can buy more than what they can actually afford to buy. And the pre-approval goes a long way in setting kind of the right expectations for the buyer and for you, because you don't even know what to show them until you get that pre-approval.
Yeah, a lot of times people have expectations of certain houses. And as I tell them, I don't want to get your hopes up by showing you properties that you cannot afford, because then that just is kind of a Debbie Downer. It's just, you know, man, I really like that house. What do I do? What can I do to get that house? And
Right.
I don't want to put them through that. I only want to show them the homes that they are actually qualified for so that they can have a realistic view of what they can have, and then they can picture themselves in those homes. And I think that's very key, is for them to be able to picture themselves there. If they can't picture themselves there, then that's not the home for them.
Now, Jenny, you specialize really with first-time home buyers because you're very familiar with down payment assistance programs, and we have done, quite a few seminars and talking about first-time home buyers and down payment assistance with our online seminar we conduct twice a month. Can you speak to that in your experience in working with, HUD programs and being able to assist people who may not have the money for the down payment, but they have the job, they have the income, they have the ability to buy, and you are very familiar with down payment assistance.
Yes, I actually had one buyer late last year, and she actually put a deposit on the house. She thought she was just going to go FHA. We went Cal FHA. She got all of her credit cards paid. The seller contributed closing costs. So she got $300 back after close of escrow on the 100% program. I don't know what other program you can have where you actually get money back when you're not actually even putting any money down on a property and you're getting your debt paid off at the same time.
It certainly sounds like down payment assistance, and there are actually a couple of programs: the Golden State Finance Authority, the California Housing Finance Agency. There are other nonprofit organizations, and there's a lot of ways to get into a home with little to no money down. And I'm so happy to be partnering with you, Jenny. First Bank uh, offers everything. And you've been a great partner, and I'm looking forward to helping more of your buyers get pre-approved with no money down. Now, Jenny, can you tell us about Corona? What's happening from a seller's perspective? Someone's thinking about selling their home, and from a buyer's perspective, they want to move to Corona. Give us an overview of what's going on in Corona.
Actually, it's been really hopping over here. The listings that I've been seeing, they're going on the market. And this week, I've noticed they're going on the market and they're going into escrow within a week or two. And that is amazing. We have about 287 single family residence listings right now in Corona, which is not bad. It's up from a little over 100 last month because we had really low inventory. And we're running around $247 per square foot, okay, which is really good because at our peak, we were in the 250s and 260s. So that is really good. And we're seeing more affordable homes coming on the market. So those in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. I really would like to see more of those because that is where the meat of our buyers are right now. But again, Corona is a great place, and that's why they're not staying on the market very fast. Even the ones that are higher priced are actually, I just had a couple of neighbors and they are happy because they didn't even have to put a sign in their yard. And you don't have to put a sign in your yard to sell your home. So that is how the market is right now. But you have to realize Corona is a very unique city. We have entertainment, we've got trails to walk on, we have restaurants, we have great infrastructure, and it's almost like everybody knows everybody in the town. Even though we're a very large town now, we're a town of about 200,000. My husband grew up here and it was like 30,000 people when they moved here. I still can go out to the store, and yeah, I got to make sure I'm not in my pajamas because it seems like I see somebody I know everywhere I go.
Yes. So are you one of those that will go out to the store in your pajamas?
I will. Yeah. If I'm lazy enough, I will.
Well, Jenny, thank you for that overview of Corona. It sounds like a great place to live. In fact, I know it is. I work in Corona. Our office is in Corona, right? So it's a great place to live and work. And folks, if you're interested in buying in Corona, reach out to Jenny Gonzalez. Extraordinary real estate professional, does a great job. We're going to take a final break here. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Jenny point blank, Jenny, why should somebody call you right now? Folks, look for her call to action when we come back, right after this commercial break.